Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Sandeep Patwardhan from Sancheti Institute, Pune, pediatric orthopedic specialist. At the outset, let me thank Dr. Timma Reddy and the organizing team of TOSACON to invite me to participate in this meeting. I will be talking to you about tibial spine fractures in children briefly. If you look at knee injuries in children, acute hemarthrosis, 50% of the times the cause is an ACL tear. 40% of the times it could be a meniscal tear, and only in 10% of the times it's a fracture. Tibial eminence fractures usually happen between 8 and 14-year-old children when they are very active with sports. Usual mechanism is hyperextension or a direct blow to a flexed knee, and commonly it happens when the child falls from a bicycle when the knee is semi-flexed and then it goes into recurvatum or hyperextension. They will come to you with symptoms of severe swelling with a swollen knee and pain and unable to bear weight. On the physical exam, you will see a tense knee effusion due to hemarthrosis, and there is inability to move the knee, and it's usually in a flexed position, and there is restriction of range of motion. When you get x-rays done, typically on the AP and lateral view, the most useful views are determining the displacement of the fracture. You can get additional X-rays in the form of intercondylar or oblique X-rays, which are useful in determining how much of the tibial plateau is involved. Advanced imaging in the form of a CT scan may be useful for preoperative planning in case the actual displacement of the fracture is not very well seen on plain X-rays. MRI is useful for determining whether there are associated ligamentous injuries, meniscal injury, or if there is something entrapped, because most of the times if it is not reducible there may be a meniscal or intermeniscal ligament entrapped into the fracture. It's been found that 15 to 37% of cases can have an associated intraarticular pathology. The commonly used classification for tibial eminence fractures is the Myers-Mackiver classification. The original classification had three types. The fourth type was added later. Type 1 is where there is an undisplaced fracture at the footprint of the ACL in the intercondylar notch. A type 2 is like raising a flap. There is an incomplete fracture, but the posterior cartilage hinge is intact. The type 3 is a complete avulsion with complete displacement. However, it usually is a single large piece or a large fragment. Zaninsky gave us the fourth type where he said that the avulsion fragment can be comminuted and displaced into the joint. So that is the type 4, a comminuted intercondylar eminence fracture. The treatment of tibial eminence fractures is usually conservative, especially for type 1 and type 2. Under a short anesthetic, you aspirate the hemarthrosis and then you would do reduction with hyperextension. In hyperextension, usually the fragment closes or sits back, and then you give an above knee cast in 0 degree or maybe a little 5 degree flexion, provided the fragment sits back and you have full extension on table. Surgery is indicated if there is a block to extension, complete displacement, or an entrapped meniscus on MRI. Surgery may be either arthroscopy assisted or an open arthrotomy, and you have to be aggressive in patients who are older than 12 years. Otherwise, they end up with permanent laxity. So this is an example of a type 2 fracture. You can see that it's avulsed from the front, but posteriorly there is some continuity. And then after hemarthrosis aspiration and hyperextension, the fragment has sat back nicely. You must always follow them very closely till you get full extension. Otherwise, they may just spring back like this, or there is no reduction to begin with. And if they heal with that fragment off because bone is formed in between, it creates an extension block. And this permanent extension block is very disabling, and the child will have a permanent flexion deformity and unable to lock the knee in stance phase of the gait. In the conserved cases, 50% may still have ACL laxity, but it is not functionally disabling. But a loss of extension can be very, very debilitating, and it's important that we make sure there is no loss of extension. This is an example of a McKeever 3, a completely displaced fracture, where in the earlier days of our practice, we used to do open arthrotomy and a suture fixation with complete intraepiphyseal technique. I will show you. So this is a standard medial parapatellar arthrotomy. You identify the fragment and from the base of the ACL, make two small K-wire drill holes and then pass ethibond number 2 and get the fragment pulled down. Then you make two small holes into the epiphysis without crossing the growth plate and bring the thread out and tie it anteriorly onto the surface of the tibia as is shown here. So that is the reduction. You can also do an arthrogram to confirm the reduction. Make sure that the fragment sits back and you have full extension. And then you cast it for about 2 to 3 weeks and then start gentle non-weight bearing range of motion exercises. Arthroscopy has offered us a small minimally invasive method of doing the same thing. This is an example where an arthroscopic fixation has been done. The fragment, as you can see, is lifted off from here and this has been restored with a suture. This is another example where there is an ACL avulsion, a type 3 fracture, and the suture which has been used to put the piece back. And this is, you can see, this is how you should be able to see the flat restoration and make sure that the fracture doesn't extend laterally too much into the tibial plateau. Suture fixation usually preferred for large divulged fragments which can be repaired directly. In the smaller fragments, the suture has to go through the base of the ACL because the bone stock may be poor and tensioning the ACL is the key. It causes minimal damage to the physis and growth at the physeal level is not hampered if you use non-absorbable sutures. It's a little technically demanding, and sometimes an open procedure may be more suitable than an arthroscopic procedure if you do not have the experience. A screw fixation is easier to do, and possibly because it gives compression, you can start early mobilization, but you must have an intact large osteochondral fragment. There can be loosening and hardware irritation. If it is comminuted type 4, then a single screw is usually not possible or difficult. There may be impingement. Sometimes the fragment is so small that while drilling arthroscopically, you may shatter it and cause iatrogenic comminution. If it is malpositioned, you may require removal later. And if you cross the physis, there is a risk of creating a physeal damage and deformity later. Generally, the tibial eminence fracture results are satisfactory if you get full extension. Most of them will have some ACL laxity irrespective of which method you use, but they are asymptomatic. And 85% of these children will return to sport. So results are generally good. And it's important to diagnose this and treat it adequately. And prevention of the extension block is the key to success. I thank you very much for allowing me to talk on this very specific small topic. And I hope it helps you in your practice. Thank you very much.